Today. My name is Risa Eldon, and I'm the head of industry partnerships here at Houzz. I'm super grateful for Enoch Sears to be joining us today, and we have a really awesome presentation for you all today. Before I go ahead and get started, I want to give you a little bit of background of myself, of Houzz, and then I will pass it over to you, Enoch, to go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned, I am the head of industry partnerships here at Houzz, and we just launched Houzz Pro, which offers an all-in-one solution that empowers home design and renovation professionals to stand out, win more clients, increase profits, get paid faster, and stay connected with your clients and teams, which of course now more than ever is very important. And I'm joined by Enoch Sears, who is the founder of Business of Architecture, a leading business consultancy that helps home professionals build a business that doesn't just get in the way of doing exceptional work. And Enoch, we've worked together before. I just want to say thank you again for your time, and I'm excited for us to dive into, how to win projects in this kind of COVID-19 world, this new normal. So I'll pass it over to you.
Fantastic. Risa, can you hear me okay? Want to make sure my audio is working fine. Okay, let's do this. First of all, thank you everyone for coming in here today. So glad to be with you. And what I'd like to know is just so I can make sure that you can communicate and you can ask questions in the chat box. You'll see a little place where it says ask questions to staff. If you would just type in there, tell me your name and where you're calling in from. You actually don't even need to tell me your name because it'll show me your name, but just tell me where you're calling in from today. And then also, if you would, I'd like you to rate your knowledge about client acquisition in terms of your ability to be able to create demand for your services in your marketplace on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being you're masterful, you went to seminars, you've studied, you're like a master marketer, business development specialist, and you have no problem with your pipeline, and 0 being that you haven't invested a lot of time in learning how to market and sell your services, and you're pretty much a beginner in that, but you're a great design home professional, whatever your profession is. So if you would do me a favor, just drop those into that rating for yourself, anywhere from a 0 to a 10, and let's see what you all say here. And I know that Risa will be monitoring those questions. So as we go along, there will be opportunity for to contribute, to participate, and I hope you do that so we can make the most out of our time here today. So we have about 60 minutes here. We may go just a tad bit over, but we definitely want to leave time for questions because this is a very important topic at any time, but especially right now when we're dealing with this craziness that is the COVID-19 pandemic. So the topic that we're going to be going over today, as you know, is how to win projects in a COVID-19 world. Well, the good news is that it's not too different than winning projects in a non-COVID-19 world. But it more now than ever, it is important that you have a strong and powerful pipeline for your business. And I'm sure you're feeling this, and that's why you're here with us today. So again, thank you for your presence. Now, what you're going to learn here today is different, and you're going to learn how to do this even if what you've tried before hasn't worked. There's a lot of things, a lot of strategies. I know I talk with designers from all around the world, and frankly, it's frustrating sometimes to really understand what works to be able to generate demand for your services in your business. So here's who this is for. This is for home design professionals, whether you're a contractor, whether you're an interior designer, whether you're an employee, or whether you have your own business, you're in the right spot today if you're looking for strategies for being able to grow your business in a predictable and sustainable way, to be able to give yourself what I call the 3 F's. The F's of fulfillment, of freedom, and exceptional finances. Now, thank you, Risa, for that quick introduction. My name is Enoch Sears. I'm a licensed California architect, although I no longer practice architecture. At one time, I did have my own architecture firm, and I shut it down after a year because it was nothing but a bunch of headaches dealing with emails, managing staff, and trying to get paid for my services. What I discovered is that I didn't have the skills or the know-how to actually run a business. I learned in school how to be a designer, but I didn't have a clue about being an entrepreneur, about managing people, about generating demand for my services. And so I've devoted my life to helping other home design professionals avoid that same trap. And along the way, I've developed what's called the Smart Practice Framework that we'll be going into a little bit here. All right, so let's quickly go over our roadmap today. So we're gonna go over specifically some, as you know, how to get projects. And ultimately, the purpose of this is so that you get consistency and peace of mind, even in this very tumultuous time. Because if you don't, here's the fact. if you don't have a way to generate business, sooner or later, you will become irrelevant and you will go out of business. It might not happen immediately, but as Gary Keller, the founder of Keller Williams Real Estate, has said, sometimes we're failing so slowly that it looks like success. In other words, sometimes these changes happen so slowly that we think we're succeeding when in reality we're failing. And something like COVID-19 comes along and really exposes what we are and the lack of systems and the lack of health that we have in our business, right? So today we're going to be going over not just theories, although there's going to be plenty of that because we need to have a theoretical foundation. We're actually going to be going over real strategies that you can use tomorrow to build a win work for your practice. All right. So to do that, we're going to go over the problems you may be facing, some of the possibilities we want to steer you towards, the principles or the mindsets or the actual theory behind this, and of course the path, which is the actual implementable tactics and strategies that you need to use. So here's a problem that I hear from a lot of home design professionals is that clients, people in general, don't value your creativity. And this is frustrating, whether you're an interior designer, whether you're an architect, whether you're a contractor, other home service professional. A lot of times it's easy to get caught in the trap of giving bids. I mean, you know how it is. You're out there, you're going out to visit, and people are just interested in the bottom line. They're just interested in the price. Now, the reason why this happens is because a lot of times providers don't give them anything else to look at beyond the price. And so people have nothing else to compare providers with. This is what they're focused on, is just the measurable number, which is the fees that you charge. It's a frustrating place to be for someone who's in it for the passion, for someone who wants to make a difference. Now, the second problem that you may be experiencing is having unpredictable workflow, of having those up and downs, the feast or famine cycle of either having too much work and running around with your, like a chicken with your head chopped off maybe 3 months ago when everything was so busy. What I'm hearing now from a lot of designers in the field is that they're taking a much welcome break right now. They're able to slow down. They're able to focus on some strategic initiatives. And what we want to do in your practice is we want to be able to set you up with systems so that you have some predictability and some sustainability, because this is what makes a long-lived business. All right. Now, let's just do something. I'm not seeing any questions come in here, and I want to make sure you all can ask questions. So if you would, just go into the questions to staff box there and let me
Enoch, you
know.
won't be able to see the questions. I'm sorry to chime in. You won't be able
Can
to see
you?
them, but I can see them. There's a lot of responses. Yeah, so
That's fantastic.
yes,
Can you make me
yes,
an organizer by chance so I could see those? I'll let
yes.
you do that in the background. Risa, thank you for letting me know, and I will continue on here. All right, so let's go into the possibilities, right? So those are the problems. The possibilities that you're actually paid for your creative effort, your creative work. That's what we're going to be going over today. I want to have you consider that it is possible to have predictable workflow and amazing. So thank you, Risa, for letting me see that, and thank you everyone for commenting on where you're from. I'm seeing here kind of how you're rating yourself. We got a bunch of advanced people. We have some beginners here. So this will be very, very relevant for you. Thank you for that. All right, let's jump into our principles. Principle number one is that the eyes see what the mind is looking for. And a mentor told this to me once. And when I was talking to Risa about the content for this particular training today, what I realized is in all the noise right now about COVID-19, about how it's impacting home design professionals, there's one danger that is so dangerous and so risky for your business that it has the ability to literally sink your ship. And it's not actually the COVID virus. It's not actually even the economic effect of what we're seeing right now in the economy, the economic restriction, the downturn, right? I would ask you, what do you think it is? What do you think is the major risk right now for your business? What is, if it's not COVID-19, if it's not the downturn, it is related to what's happening, but what would you think is the major risk? Joshua, hey Joshua, good to see you on here. Your mindset, that's right, fear, losing your identity. Yes, it's what happens up here between your own ears. And I'll admit, when I first heard we were going into quarantine, and I saw that architects who I serve, home design professionals, are going to be impacted, it was very scary, and I was very anxious. I mean, I was literally, I had like this little mental breakdown. I was out for a run, and I almost broke down in tears because I thought, wow, what's happening to the world? It was very, very scary. I was anxious, heart was beating, it was stressful. Look, these moments happen to all of us. We all wake up sometimes like that. We don't have control over it, but that's where we need to get control of that. And so what I'm going to go through right now is how to shift that mindset from one of anxiety and fear that paralyzes us to actually empowering us, because that is the danger. The danger is that we look at this situation and we're like this rabbit. Now, the truth is there's going to be a lot of business owners right now for the next couple of years. This is what they're seeing. They're just seeing the headlights barreling down the road, and frankly, they're going to get flattened. And the reason why this happens is because of the fear. It's because of the lack of seeing the opportunities around them, right? Going back to our principle, which is the mind will see, or the eyes will see what the mind is looking for. Or we can say it the other way, the mind will see what the eyes are looking for. Either way works, right? So I ask you, now some design home professionals, frankly, they're going to be like this. A lot of them, the vast majority of not just businesses, well, not just home design professionals, but businesses in general, this is going to be their reality, right? On the other hand, some are going to be like this. Now I'd ask you, what do you see when you see this picture right here on the screen? What do you see there? And put that in the chat box. And then Risa, I am getting your messages. Thank you for that, Risa. So I'm definitely want to coordinate that. Yeah, what do you all see here in this particular book? A ship under construction. Yeah, but how does it relate to our conversation that we're having about today about what to do in your business, right? If we look at this one, here's one example of a business right now in the current situation. What's the allegory that we can see here? Boom, a big project, opportunity, work in progress, a ship being repaired. It's repairing the ship, it's built, it's construction. Yeah, look, when these things happen, let's just take the ship analogy. When a ship is out in the storm, when it's out at sea, there's going to be times when you come into port of your own volition, or other times you're forced into port, right? Now, there may be things outside of your control right now that are actually impacting and affecting your business. This happens to all of us. But the question is, what are you going to do with the certain circumstances that you're currently under? So are you going to take this time to put your ship in dry dock, to give it the new layer of paint, to invest, to double down on investing in your business, so that when you go back out to sea, you're that much stronger? Now, there was a great example here, and hopefully this works. I'm going to share something here from the movie Forrest Gump. Now, if you remember Forrest Gump, great movie, love that movie. And there's a point in the movie where he meets this guy named Bubba, and him and Bubba invest in a shrimping boat. So they're small business owners. They think, you know what, this is amazing. We can make our own money. We'll have our own freedom. They get Lieutenant Dan, of course, the guy who was in the war with them, who had his legs amputated. And they all three go into business. And they're like, okay, we're going to start shrimping. This is how we're going to make a living, right? Not too different than a lot of us as home design professionals when we get into the business. We're excited about the opportunity, about the freedom. And let's just see what happens. So hopefully this will work here. And I want you to see what you're hearing and what you're seeing as this video proceeds here.
No shrimp.
Where's this god of yours?
It's funny Lieutenant Dan said that, because right then, God showed up. Now me, I was scared, but Lieutenant Dan, he was mad.
Come on! You call this a storm? Oh, you son of a... Oh! It's time for a showdown! You and me! I'm right here! Come and get me! You'll never sink this boat!
Hurricane Carmen came through here yesterday, destroying nearly everything in its path. And as in other towns up and down the coast, Biola Battery's entire shrimping industry has fallen victim to Carmen and has been left in utter ruin. Speaking with local officials, this reporter has learned, in fact, Only one shrimping boat actually survived the storm.
Louise, there's Forrest.
After that, shrimping was easy. And since people still needed them shrimps for shrimp cocktails and barbecues and all, we were the only boat left standing. Bubba Gump shrimp's what they got. We got a whole bunch of boats, 12 Jennies, big old warehouse. We even have hats that say Bubba Gump on them. Bubba Gump Shrimp. It's a household name.
Love it. All right, so some of you said that you couldn't hear that. Hopefully the vast majority of you did. But what we just saw was a clip from the great movie Forrest Gump. And what we saw during that clip was that they were out shrimping and they weren't catching anything. They were bringing in, threw down a couple old pots and pans on the deck. And Lieutenant Dan said, well, where's that God of yours? And then all of a sudden the storm comes and Forrest says, well, it's funny that he said that, right? Because suddenly here's the storm. And very similar to the situation we're in right now, right? Skies are blue, everything's peaceful outside. Maybe this came at a very inopportune time for you, right? I mean, as it did for me and a lot of other people, there never is an opportune time to have a storm like this blow through this COVID-19 pandemic, okay? But what we saw happen is that while they were out at sea dealing with the waves and the wind, Lieutenant Dan going crazy on the top of the mast, yelling out and just having the time of his life, when they came back into shore, what had happened to all the other shrimping boats? They thought they were safe because they were hunkered down. They had cut back. They stayed warm and nice in their homes, but their businesses were decimated. And so because of that, Forrest Gump is the end. He says, we have 12 shrimping boats. He says, after that, shrimping became real easy. So what message are you getting from this little video clip? I want to know specifically, what are you hearing here that's relevant for you and your current situation in your business so far? What have you heard? John says, fight. Gabrielle, important not to stop. Hang in there. Perseverance. Perseverance pays off. Stay in the game. Yeah. Don't give up. That's right. Yeah, I love it. Stay persistent. Look, I know it sounds trite. And I know that a lot of you are probably on this webinar because you want to know, Enoch, what can I do tomorrow to walk out the door and to get some revenue, to bring in some business? And the key is that if we don't have the basic foundation of having a fighting attitude, of being able to double down when other people are retreating, all the tactics in the world aren't going to help, because we'll be hunkered down at home while the storm's blowing over, hope to wait until the skies get clear again. And in the meantime, our business won't have progressed at all. Well, there's others that have doubled down on growing their business, have been able to grow. And then, like it was for Forrest Gump and his partners, shrimping became real easy after that. So what I'd have you consider is that right now for you, shrimping will become real easy. All right. Now, here's a couple messages just to inspire you. These are messages that I was sent to me by people in my network, architects specifically that do residential projects. So we're in the home design industry here. And these are just two that I pulled out of my inbox to inspire those of you who may be feeling a bit of scarcity, feeling that, my goodness, I had some clients cancel, some projects put on hold. That's going to happen. It's just going to happen. There's no doubt about it. But look, check this out. Yes, we're doing well. We've landed 5 new projects since shelter in place hit, with fees representing around 3 months of normal billings. Okay, this is after quarantine was already happening. Okay, here's another one. Business is, to my surprise, overwhelming. And check this out, almost all my residential clients want to press forward with their projects. And I have 3 new projects starting. I think people have time to think about their projects with the quarantine. And I think home is feeling more important than ever, and people want to create a home that's right for them. Many people would also rather put their money into property than anything else right now. It goes on, okay? So what I'd ask you is, there's 2 ways of looking at what's happening right now, right? The first way is that the world is falling, my business is in danger, my cash flow is being constricted, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills, I'm going to have to furlough staff, I sure hope I get that stimulus. The world is falling and there's no opportunity out there. That's one way to look at it, is that, I just got to wait till the economy gets good again, because there's not a whole lot that's going to be able to be happening here in a down economy. Right? That's way number 1. Now, way number 2 we can look at this is is full of opportunity is we can look at it like Bubba and Forrest. We can look at it as a time when there's going to be so many other business owners in our markets that are hunkering down, that are wondering what to do, that are running around, that feel panic stricken. And we can see that as an opportunity to grow our market share, to grow our message. Now I'm going to ask you, which one of those two ways of looking at things is going to serve you more and be more effective for you? So let's jump into principle number 2. So that was principle number 1, which was the mind will see what the eyes are looking for. You can flip that around. The eyes will see what the mind is looking for. So when we talk about this idea, this principle of thinking about it like an entrepreneur, right? If you look at what an entrepreneur does, an entrepreneur basically looks at an opportunity and combines that opportunity with resources to create value, or in this case, money, right? So they take an offer, something that they're offering, they bring the resources together and they create money. Now they do this in an up economy, they do this in a down economy, but this is the mindset of an entrepreneur. And so what I see so often is that as business owners, we get so hunkered down in our business about the fact that, yeah, it's going to be harder to get jobs right now. Yeah, I'm going to have stronger marketing systems in place. We get stressed and overwhelmed because to us, a lot of times, especially if you're a sole proprietor or you have a small team, like your business is your livelihood. But what would happen if you kind of stepped out of your business for a minute, at least psychologically, and you just viewed it as an asset, like an investment in the stock market? If you just said, okay, look, this is just an investment of mine and I can nurture it, I can tweak it, I can do some things to it here and let's see how it performs. And it may not perform that well or it may perform better, right? But ultimately as an entrepreneur, what you have the ability to do is to take the resources available to you, create some value, and out of that you create money and consistency for yourself and the lifestyle you want. So what I'd have you consider is that there's 3 basic resources that you need as an entrepreneur in the home design industry, actually in any industry. Here they are. Here's your 3 resources. Number 1, a list. I'm going to go over what that is. Number 2, an offer. And number 3, a channel. All right. When we talk about a list, what we're referring to here I'm going to go at the end of this presentation a little bit later. I'm going to go more into what a list is. But there's, we can think about a list like a database. We can think about it like a contact list. We can think about it as a network, right? So you probably, if you're like most home design professionals, you probably get most of your clients from, put in the chat box, where do you get most of your clients from? Where does most of your work come? What lead source? Are you getting it from SEO? Are you getting it from paid advertising? Are you getting it from Houzz? I know a lot of people are. You're probably getting a lot from referrals, right? Okay, so this is what we talk about when we talk about a list, okay? So everyone that follows your Houzz profile, you can consider that person on your list, meaning they're in your sphere of influence, they're in your network, right? The people that you know, likewise, right? All those people are part of your list, your contact list. So that's what I mean by list. Now there's 2 things that make a list powerful. Number 1 is trust, and number 2 is actually the database and the contact. We'll talk about that in a minute. The offer is what you do, okay? So these are the services that you provide, and the channel, number 3, is how you reach them, okay? Now have a look at this little graph here. Now, I was on a walk with my wife and I kind of had a little insight about this because I was thinking, you know what, honey, even with my business, which is a consulting business, I charge similar to architecture firms or, my clients. I deal primarily with architects and design professionals. But what happens in the home design industry is that you're going to have a lot of income one day and not very much the next. You invoice people and that's when you get the money in your bank account. So I said, you know what, honey, if I was just to look at today and to look at my bank account, I would absolutely be freaking out because I didn't bill anyone today. No revenue came in. I would just absolutely be beside myself with panic and fear, like, oh my goodness, the world is falling. I'm not making any money now. Of course, next week, boom, we get an invoice in, we get money in the bank account. We feel great. We go out for a date, we celebrate. I have 6 kids, and so there's a lot of mouths to feed in my family, and we're like very, very happy. Yes, we can feed the family for another month maybe. Well, the way they eat in like 2 weeks, right? But here's the thing. As a home design professional, your business isn't like McDonald's. It's not like someone who's selling widgets. It's not like you're probably not getting revenue in every single day. So you're already used to the fact that you're going to have fluctuations, that one day is going to be bonanza, the next day is going to be a famine, right? But here's the thing. As we begin to zoom out from, if we look at, are you going to be concerned that you don't get paid today? Probably not. Are you going to get concerned if you don't get paid tomorrow? Probably not. Sometime within the month, you're going to get paid. And that's how most business owners look at their business, on a monthly basis, right? So we already know we're not getting freaked out if we don't get paid for a couple of days in a row, but we would get freaked out if we didn't get paid for a month, right? But what I'd have you consider is that as we zoom out from that, if we were just to apply the same mindset and say, you know what, if I don't get paid this month, no big deal, because next month we're going to get paid. And if we zoom out even further, we can say, you know what, 4 months from now we're going to get paid. 5 months from now we're going to get paid. We may have very narrow margins for a few months, for 6 months, for even a year. And if we continue to zoom out, what's going to happen is we're going to see an average. It's going to turn into a straight line. So again, this is part of our mindset about being able to see the current situation. We can look at COVID like this. We can say, you know what, in a down economy, yeah, things are going to go down. But it's just a matter of zooming out, looking at it at the bigger picture and understanding that things are going to go back up again. This is what allows you to remain in a place of power, to remain confident, to make the bold business moves that you need to be making right now, to be like Forrest Gump. So you can have, like Forrest said, we even have hats that say it, hats and shirts, Bubba Gump shrimp, right? Cool. So what I'd have you consider right here is that with the right network, anything is possible. So we're still in our principles, right? With the right network, anything is possible. Consider if you knew all the decision makers, if you knew the big players in your market who could refer you the right kind of products and the right kind of work. What would that look like for your business? So try this on for size. Try on this possibility that the only thing stopping you from having the business that you want to have is having the network and the connections with the people who can help you get to where you want to get to. Okay, so that's our principle number, what are we at? Principle number 3. With the right network, anything is possible. Principle number 4, especially important during this time, is to be strategic, not opportunistic. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll tell you a story about 2 villages. There were 2 villages, same distance from a river. And one of the villages, all the villagers, well, in both the villages for years and years and years, hundreds of years, the way that they got water was that they dipped buckets in the water and they carried them back and forth to the villages. And one day, a young boy thought, in one of the villages, thought, you know what? Oh, geez, instead of carrying these buckets back and forth, what if we build an aqueduct? What if we actually dig a canal or build a pipeline to be able to bring the water to the village? Now, the elder villagers thought, silly boy, this kid doesn't know what he's talking about. That's craziness. We're so busy right now running our village. We don't have time, any extra labor to be able to build a pipeline. So this young boy and his friends decided to go out and set the example. They went ahead and they started building the pipeline. Before long, the other villagers pitched in. They saw that it was a good idea. They were inspired by this young child and his friends, and they decided to help build the pipeline. So after a year of hard, difficult labor, they now had a pipeline. Now, what ultimately happened was, of course, they could stop carrying the water back and forth, okay? And this village, because they had pipeline, I'm not sure it actually looked like that, but because they had these pipelines, they were able to take over the region. They were able to take over the other small village. They became very, very prosperous and began to actually rule the entire area. They were able to spend their time doing things like being educated, improving their crops, improving their healthcare. Now, what do you see here in terms of your business when you think about the idea of building a pipeline? Being strategic versus opportunistic. When you look at your day-to-day, how you're spending your time, are you strategic or are you opportunistic? Because here's the thing, not all activities are equal. So as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, one of the primary kind of leverage you have in your business is resource allocation. What do we mean by that? We mean the resources we talked about. Well, we have the list, we have the offer, we have the list, we have the offer, and we have the channels. But really the building blocks that you have would be your time, your energy, and your money. And so you can choose how you distribute those or allocate those in your business. And really, this is the key to having exponential results, to putting in small inputs and having large outputs. It just comes down to how you use the resources that you have. Consider that. And how does that relate to our example here of the villagers carrying water versus the villagers that build the pipeline? I know y'all are smart. Drop this in here. What's our message here? And Lori says, how do we continue the right network in this time of social distancing? I'll definitely touch on that. Go ahead, drop in here. What message are you all hearing about this example of the two villages? And I'll respond to that question right now about this idea of network. And look, what I found is that right now people are way more accessible. So imagine this. Say you work with high net worth clients, okay, or you want to work with high net worth clients, right? These are the markets that I tell my clients to work with because frankly, it's always better, it's easier when you're able to charge premium fees in your market, okay? Now, let's imagine wealthy individuals that want to invest in their homes, right? So these would be, you know, at the very top end, hedge fund managers, bankers, VPs, CEOs of companies. Like, what are they doing right now? Okay, normally they're in an office and they have a gatekeeper who's filtering everything through them. Now, it doesn't mean that you're just going to be able to like ring them up on social media or anything like that, but they're going to be more accessible now than they were 3 or 4 months ago, right? So this goes back to this example of Forrest Gump. Like, now is the time to take your opportunity. There's so many digital tools out there to reach people. All right, so let's see what y'all are saying. All right, Ashley, persevering through hard times will be more prosperous versus waiting until things are back to normal and working status quo. Absolutely. Long-term versus short-term thinking. Exactly, right? So here's the thing. Right now is the time to build your pipeline. And it's never going to be a good time to invest more time in your business because I know how you think as a home design professional, right? You're getting paid for your time. A lot of you are charging hourly, or if you're not working, you're not making money. And so there's this trade-off of how do we get paid today, but how do we put in the inputs today so that we can reap the benefits later? And what ends up happening with so many small businesses, so many small design professionals, is that they're focused just on the day-to-day of bringing in the money today. And so they stay on that treadmill instead of actually investing in their business, investing in their marketing strategies, investing in their sales strategies, and investing in their network and their visibility so that next year they've started to build this momentum that then carries them. They can move out of being in the business and on the treadmill all the time, right? Okay, cool. So let's talk about the path. Okay, that's great, in it, great theory. I get it. I'm pumped up now. Hopefully, let's talk about what are the actual strategies that we can use here. Well, there's a mentality here. So what I'd have you consider is that there's two ways that most home design professionals go around this about acquiring new business. Number one is as a hunter-gatherer, right? And the other way is as a farmer, right? So here's the thing with the hunter-gatherer. The hunter-gatherer approach is that we're involved in the business. We're just doing the day-to-day. We're not doing any sales and marketing. When the times are good and when the times are bad, we're not doing it because we're just expecting the phone to ring. And this is not too dissimilar from the hunter-gatherer lifestyle. I mean, we learned back in 5th grade, this is how our ancestors did it, is their entire lives were based upon what happened in the weather, right? Whether it was a bad winter that year, whether there was a lot of game or there wasn't. And entire populations were decimated because they approached life from this hunter-gatherer frame. Now, until someone decided, hey, let's plant something, right? And then, of course, we learned that some of the great civilizations in Egypt and Mesopotamia, in China, began to grow and flourish because now they had consistency. So what I'd ask you is, in your business, are you a hunter-gatherer or are you farming? Okay. Are you a hunter-gatherer or are you farming, right? Because when you're farming, this is what gives you the consistency. How much easier is it to be able to plant strawberries every year, to go out there and be able to pick the strawberries when they're ripe because you have them in a contained area versus trying to go out in the forest and trying to pick some berries, or having an apple orchard, right? And knowing that your apples are there and you just need to go pick them off the tree because you fertilize them and you spent the time to create the farm. Okay, so let's have a look at what is a farm. We're going to go over a quick example. I just want to simplify this idea of client acquisition. Okay, let's have a look here. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to exit out of this. I'm going to pull up my iPad here. Hopefully y'all can still see this. All right, there we go. Beautiful. Okay, so when we look at this idea of client acquisition, what I'd have you consider is that there's three things. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Number 1 is your network. Okay. Number 2 is a means or a mechanism whereby you can harvest from that network. And number 3 is your awareness, what I call your awareness activities. And so using this framework, you'll be able to break this down right now and say, okay, cool. I'm going to give you a little opportunity here to do a little audit on your marketing and your sales process, right? So when we look at network, this is the idea of a list. Now there's two things that go into a network I'd have you consider. Number 1 is the data. Data is simply who are the people that you need to be connecting with? Who are the people in your network? What are their names? What are their email addresses? What are their phone numbers? This is purely a contact list. Now, you could go out tomorrow to a list broker. These are people that sell direct mailing lists. You could buy a list of potential high net worth individuals in your area. That's what I mean by data. You could look up in your email address book and you can have access to all the emails in your database, right? And hopefully you'll take advantage. I mean, Risa gave us an excellent example earlier about the tools that Houzz has to be able to manage your list. This is what we're talking about, and that's why that's so important. One of the reasons why they're adding that is because the money and the consistency in your business is in your data. You have to have a way to organize that and to be able to leverage it and use it, right? Now, number 2, it doesn't do us any good just to have a list, because like I said, you could go out, you could buy an email list somewhere, you could scrape it off of web pages, stuff like that. But the second part of this is you need to have the trust. So there's 2 things that go into having a network. Number 1, having the contacts, having the names, having the data. And number 2, the trust that you have built with that network. And this is where we get into the idea of farming. So what I'd have you consider is that your farm is your network. And so have a thought. How many activities that you do to be able to farm your network as opposed to waiting for the hunter-gatherer, the rainstorms to come and to water the crops? Okay, we talk about harvest. Look, a farmer, they invest millions in these big machines to be able to harvest the crops. You need to have a mechanism yourself for being able to harvest that. Number 3, your awareness activities. How do people understand that you're out there, that they can reach you, that you're even alive, right? And so when we look at these 2 activities, harvester and your awareness activities, I mean, we've been talking about Houzz. I mean, Houzz that's a mechanism for harvesting, right? It's a mechanism for harvesting because you have your profile out there and it allows you to turn that interest into inquiries for your business. Now we're talking about awareness activities. This is things, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this at the end of the webinar, but making sure you're doing those things that put you in front of the right people. Okay, so this is it. That's it. We'll simplify it, right? This is client acquisition, just building your network, right? Being able to have a harvesting mechanism and being able to do the awareness activities. Now, I've been doing this a long time, and I know exactly what works for home design professionals to get exceptional projects. Like, I know what works, and you're looking at it. Okay, I wish there was some simple magic bullet I could tell you about, some new technique or some new little twist or some new strategy, but ultimately it's going to come down to this. It's going to come down to building your network. It's going to come down to turning the interest into inquiries, and it's going to come down to staying relevant and staying in front of people. Okay, let me know if this is making sense. It's that simple. So do an audit. How many times you keep in track of people? How many times are you like staying in touch with your network? Okay, this is a small lever, but it definitely turns large doors. All right, let's get into how to create your farm. You're like, okay, great, Enoch, that sounds fantastic. How do I create my farm? What I'd have you consider here, let me give you a framework for what it takes to create a farm. Okay, so there's 3 elements here. 1, 2, and 3, like that. Okay. And element number 1 up here to when we look at creating your farm is connections. By connections, we mean getting introduced to people, growing your network, going to live events. One of my favorite strategies for doing this, for connecting with people and growing your network, is what I call the interviewer strategy. So hopefully you're putting out some sort of monthly content, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's an email. That is a great opportunity for you to be able to position yourself as an interviewer of people in your network, meaning you reach out to them and they may not even be in your network. This is a great way to be able to make a cold touch with someone that you haven't contacted before and be able to build a relationship with them. This is one of the #1 questions I get is, Enoch, how do I reach that decision maker? How do I connect with this person? They don't know who I am. Well, use the interviewer strategy. I mean, look, how did Oprah get famous, right? Oprah got famous because she put herself in front of people that were famous, and by association, she began to grow her network. One of my favorite strategies. I have dozens more, but that's one of my favorite strategies for actually getting connections with people. All right. So as you're growing connections, what I mean by connecting is just talking with people and having conversations. Okay. So when we come down to the other part of our framework down here, yeah, we're actually talking about having conversations. And then as we grow our connections, as we have conversations, meaning that these are just human to human conversations, but we also need to be able to collect, that we're not just there as friends and people who are, kind of checking in on them. Although we do that as well, we need to be able to ask for the sale, turn that into an actual opportunity. So we call that collecting, or we call that, and the reason why I call it collecting is because we're not trying to sell here, we're not trying to close a sale. When you do this correctly and you've built the trust with your network, what you find is it allows you to stand in the position of actually collecting, right? Closing the sale, converting those in your network into opportunities. So this is how we build our farm. Let me know if this is making sense. Like when you do this consistently, and it's as simple as that, when you connect with people consistently, when you engage them in conversations and begin to build trust with them, then that puts you in a position of being able to collect, okay? However, here's the trick. In today's crowded marketplace with so much noise out there, so much competition, so many people just focused on the bottom line, right? Want to get the cheapest deal. There's something else we need to put into this. And this is what I call the right soil. So we just talked about building our farm. How do we begin to cultivate it, right? We talk about the right soil. There's also 3 elements that go into this as well. So I'm just going to draw a little Venn diagram here. And number 1 here is what I call our resonant refrain. Number 2 down here is going to be what I call the rewarding reality. And number 3 over here would be the right referrals. Okay. Now, I do a whole lot of marketing training. I do a whole lot of sales training. One thing that I know that we tend to overlook as marketing and sales trainers when we do this kind of training is the fact that you have to provide an exceptional experience for your clients, right? So that's what we're talking about here, right? Well, number 1 up here, when we talk about this idea of your resonant refrain, this basically means that this is your value proposition, right? That you have to really understand what it is your clients want, what it is that your target, you have to clearly identify something that sets you apart from the masses. And I guarantee it's not a bigger home, right? Now, they may want that bigger home because of something they want. It's your job as someone that understands psychology and persuasion, because that's what we're talking about here is people, to be able to get to the get to the core of the end result that they're really after. Okay, and when you can nail that, then your message begins to resonate. What do I mean by message? This is the marketing message that you're putting out to the world. So what I'll give you is, like, if you look at psychology and persuasion, there's a number of things that drive human beings. One of them, a big one, is the desire to look good. Let's face it. A lot of the reason why someone would want to do a home design project is because they want to look good. They want to look good to themselves, that, man, I'm successful. I've been able to invest in my home. We have this beautiful space. They want to look good to other people. They want to invite people over. They want to throw parties. If you can connect to this desire, you're having a whole nother conversation with them that's not based around money or the cost of your services. It's based around something primal that they want. Number 2 would be contribution. Right? Another major human driver is the desire to contribute to others. So as a father, I want to provide for my family. I want to make sure that my kids have space to play. I want to make sure that my wife has time, space to be able to do her things that she likes to do at home. I want to be able to have space in the backyard where people can come over to our house and we can all have a huge swim party and a barbecue. Okay? These are the reasons why I would invest in the services of a home design professional. So hopefully I can't go into this too deep because we only have 60 minutes here. And we're tight for time, but I'd have you consider, what is your marketing message? Are you resonating with the things that your clients really care about? Or are you keeping everything service level? Because your ability as someone who's being able to collect and close deals is going to come down to how quickly and how clearly can you sense and can you feel what someone wants out of their project, their end result. Okay? Rewarding reality. This means that our process, once someone becomes a client, we deliver an exceptional service. We don't miss deadlines. We communicate. If we are going to miss a deadline, we let them know. We're not hitting them up with some sort of surprise change orders. We're not trying to get the lowest bid in so that we can mark up the thing later and just creating a horrible experience for people, right? This is something that we don't touch on when we talk about sales and marketing, which is, yeah, we actually have to provide an exceptional service. And so this is a very important of having the right soil, right? Is this idea of, highlight this here, a rewarding reality, meaning that when people come into your ecosystem, when they sign on the dotted line, when they give you money, when they engage you for your services, that they have an exceptional experience. And that doesn't just happen by accident. So I don't want to leave that out of the picture here. Ultimately, if you do those two things, what's going to happen is it's going to lead to the right kind of referrals for you. And what this creates is beautiful, because ultimately what starts to happen here is that you have this cycle whereby you're attracting the right kind of clients. They're having an exceptional experience with you. They're referring you on. Those referrals then come back into the pipeline and you're able to bring them into your farm, harvest them, so to speak, okay? These are the principles. Now, when we look at this idea of having a marketing message that resonates with your clients, there's 3 basic things we want to look at. I'm going to draw our last Venn diagram right here. Okay, that's a pretty lopsided Venn diagram, but you get the picture. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about differentiating your firm, right? Because it's one thing to build your network. It's one thing to be able to farm that network, but it's another thing is, how do I answer the question that every single client is thinking out there, which is, why should I do business with you over all the other options that are available to me, including the option of doing nothing? Okay, this is where we get into your marketing message and what I'm going to call here, how do we turn the tables through a strong value proposition? Okay, there's 3 elements here. Element number 1 is positioning of your firm, of your services, of what you provide as a home design professional. Number 2 down here would be publicity. And then over here we have the packaging. So generally, let's see if I spell packaging right. Generally, this is what people think about when they think about their marketing, like what people experience through your marketing messages, on your website, etc. And positioning is basically how you position yourself versus the other competitors in your niche. So do you position yourself as an expert, as a specialist? You can position yourself as the high-end alternative? Do you position yourself as the budget option, right? But you have to be very clear on where you're positioning yourself in your market so that people can understand what it is that you represent. Publicity, that goes without saying. You know what that is? That's getting visibility in your marketplace. Packaging, when we talk about packaging, a sub component of packaging down here is like your presentation. What I mean by packaging is it's the whole package of what people see when they experience your brand, right? So when we talk about packaging, it could even go down as simple as or as granular as the kind of clothes you wear, the kind of glasses you have, what your website looks like, what your graphics look like, your value proposition, the web copy, the language that you use on your website, your positioning statement, like all of that wrapped together is your packaging. It's kind of synonymous with what people say when they say brand. You know, what does someone think about when they think about what you provide? Your design style, everything we talked about earlier, right? The rewarding reality of working with you. This is what goes into this idea of packaging and presentation. And we need to have all three of these. If you're missing one of these, you're going to have a problem as you reach out to your network, and you're going to find yourself commoditized, right? Because here's the thing. If you have, let's say you have positioning and publicity. So you're really good at getting publicity. You're really good at getting the message out there. And you have a great positioning statement and you position well against other people, but you lack the packaging and presentation. Your website looks like crap. You know, you don't dress very well. You're slovenly in your appearance. Maybe you have some body odor. I mean, I'm sure no one here does, but let's just say that this is someone's experience, right? So ultimately what happens here is that you become irrelevant. Right? And this is what leads to commoditization. I don't even know, commodities, I'm probably spelled that wrong, but you get it here, commoditization, right? So you're very visible, you have the right positioning, but it's hollow. It doesn't resonate with people, right? Because you're lacking the proper packaging and presentation. So people just look at the bottom line. You just another service provider, right? What happens when we're over here, when we have great positioning, we have great packaging and presentation, but no publicity? Well, this is where you become the best kept secret. Right? You're great. You have an amazing website that you've invested money in. You take great project photographs, but no one knows where you are, and it doesn't ever go into your checkbook because you're not able to get projects, right? Now, what happens down here, if you lack the positioning, but you have the packaging and the presentation, you have the publicity, this would be when we're talking about people, you might perceive you as salesy because you're not resonating with people. You don't have that positioning. Your message doesn't make sense. It's all fluff, it's flash, and it lacks substance, okay? So it's important that we have every single one of these things when we go out to the marketplace and when we grow and farm our network. The packaging, the presentation, the publicity, and the positioning. Let me know if this is making sense and what questions you have up to this point, because we're almost up to our time here, and I want to leave you some time for some questions. So let's jump back in here.
There are some questions coming in. If you're done, I can go into questions, but I did see one that just popped up, Enoch, about I see some home design professionals putting pricing on their websites. Do you think this could hurt or help with leads?
It depends on your positioning. It really does. I mean, it's dicey because here's the thing. That's the first question on everyone's mind is how much is it going to cost? Here's what I recommend in that instance is that you don't put a price. I don't see how you could put a price for your core services on your website. I mean, like for your core services, let's say you're a contractor, you know, the core service of adding on to someone's house, what are you going to say? You know, we charge 3% of fees. I mean, there's so many variables there, you can't possibly do that. So I would say don't price on your website your core services, but what would make sense to price is some sort of introductory package, maybe a programming study, maybe some sort of color evaluation, maybe some sort of, you know, kind of idea master plan where someone comes in for a design study. That is something that it would make sense to put a price on it because we can package that. We can make it easily digestible so people understand it. There's less hesitation where they're not wondering how much it costs. It's going to be easier to sell. But I would not put hourly rates on your website. I mean, all of that is totally out of context. And besides, the way I teach my clients is that you want to get paid for your thoughts and your designs, not for your time. So that's my opinion. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, and then should you charge for service calls? I think that person do they mean should you charge for like initial consultation calls? Is that what you mean?
Well, good question. Should you charge for service calls? I assume that you are a home design vendor, someone who's working, in a trade possibly. Like if you're I'm not quite sure about the question. So there's two things. There's number one, we want to come out and give you an estimate, right? I know companies that either they charge for that, they don't charge for that, or number two, you're going to come out and do some work. Like if you're doing some work, definitely you have to charge. You're going to go broke unless you have some sort of marketing strategy based around that free initial consultation, right? So it could work either way. It could work both ways, but here's the key. If you're going to do something for free, anything for free, it needs to be part of a smart marketing or sales process system that allows you to follow up over time. Okay,
that makes sense.
I'm gonna give you a quick example. There's a plumber. I heard this story from Dan Kennedy, one of the greatest marketers of all time. Dan Plummer tells a story about how he got this letter in the mail. This is gonna be a very, very quick story. Got a letter in the mail that was basically this plumber was soliciting him through a friend. So the letter was actually from his friend saying, "Hey, look, I worked with this plumber. He was fantastic. I just wanted to introduce you to," and he's telling you about his preventative maintenance audit. So then this plumber sent him a couple letters talking about this preventative maintenance audit where he'd come in, he'd look at all the plumbing fixtures, he'd just make sure that one of their plumbing pipes wasn't going to freeze, they weren't going to have some disaster that was going to ruin their kitchen, ruin their floor, and it was a small fee for this, right? And so what this plumber did is he charged for this little audit to come in to get his foot in the door, and then once he's there, he was able to say, oh, you know what, you need this thing upgraded, we can add this, we can add that, we can add the other. He had a little sales presentation that they were supposed to watch while he was going through and doing the audit. And he found that this guy drove in a Mercedes and he showed up in a 3-piece suit, right? So that's the idea about having something that's choreographed as opposed to just looking at it as a one thing. Do I pay for this? Should I charge for this or not? Like think about the whole process and how it all works together.
Okay. Let's see.
Now, with that, hopefully y'all can still hear me. I'm just going to finish up here in terms of, okay, cool. We learned about connecting. We learned about farming. We learned about taking the time to do that. I see the opportunities here. I just want to give you a couple tactics right here. And I'm going to say you want to, in terms of repairing your ship, make sure you're updating your reviews. So here's a quick snapshot of Houzz, right? And you can see here, I pulled this just from my local area, the top of the reviews here, 49 reviews. This is one of the best things you can do right now is make sure that in your network, for instance, on your Houzz profile, that you're actually getting those reviews on there. So that's one thing when we talk about repairing the ship, putting the paint on, right? Tightening up your message. There's of course things you can do on your website. There's things you can do with your marketing message, but definitely make sure that you're maximizing your Houzz profile. And Houzz, of course, they're the pros at that. So I think we're about to the end of my presentation here. Reset. What other questions did we have from our audience?
Lots of questions coming in. Here's a good one. Construction costs are all over the place, especially in NYC, an epicenter of the pandemic. How can we even evaluate these against an unknown market?
Yeah, I mean, you can't, unless you're a fortune teller, you're not going to be able to. And so that's where you need to have some sort of contingency within your contracts to be able to make allowance for that, because the last thing you want, look, if you have the conversation with your client, they're going to understand. It's like, markets, stock traders do this all the time. They hedge, right? That's what we're talking about. How can you hedge your bets? Because if you give them a contract today, unfortunately, there's no investment market for contractors or building professionals, right? Maybe there should be. But like if you give them a contract today based upon your projections, 3 months from now, you could be going bankrupt because boom, everything skyrocketed or there's no subcontractors and stuff like that. So what I would recommend is that you take it in phases, like outline different phases of the project based upon time, and then put in little safety valves and say, look, we're going to come back to the table and we're going to take a look and make sure that this still makes sense financially, because this needs to be good for you. It needs to be good for us. This is how we're going to give you the best deal, the best value. I won't use that deal. I'd say the best value for your money is to be able to make sure that we're not stretched thin so that we're not, tempted to do something that is not satisfactory, that you wouldn't appreciate, or take a loss, or actually not be able to do your project. So that's how I'd recommend doing that, is having those safety valves.
Okay.
In your contract. Basically a safety valve, meaning that you tell them ahead of time when you sign the contract, look, every every 2 months, we're going to have a meeting and we're going to reevaluate the numbers, and we're going to make sense that original proposal still makes sense, and that, like, you know, all the steel didn't disappear or something like that. We can still get 2x4s.
Yeah. By the way, I want to note that we are at time. We are going to stay on to answer a couple of questions. I asked Enoch if we can have a little bit more of his time, so I will try to get to all of your questions. Here's a good one coming in. Charging for my thoughts and ideas instead of my time seems like lower pricing. If time, energy, and money is important, shouldn't I be more conscious of those elements than being perceived as a great ideas person?
I mean, you tell me. I mean, look at what happened to the graphic design industry. Like, I can go on Fiverr tomorrow and I can get a logo for $5. Why? Because it's not about the idea, it's about the delivery of a logo. So if you're going to value your time, I mean, I'm not sure about the actual question there, but, you know, if you're just looking at time and materials, what you're going to earn and the impact you're going to have is going to be severely limited. You know, I think Nike paid like $300 million for their logo or something. It's a little check mark. It's a pathway to profitability, being able to sell your creativity, your expertise, your design, your differentiators, as opposed to the commoditized aspects of what you do, which is your time, you know, the fact that you produce plans, all that's very commoditized. So that's what I mean when I say getting paid for your thoughts, is that's where the value add happens.
Great. Let's see, here's a great question. How do you respond to acquaintances who invite you over to their home to get some quote unquote free ideas?
I love it. Good question. Good question. Look, this is why you need to have some sort of consultative offer that is paid. So ultimately what you can do is you can tell them ahead of time, look, I would love to come over and I'd love to give you some free ideas. Let's have a barbecue. But at the same time, you understand we're friends. I don't like to miss business and pleasure. And so ultimately, if you want to get the best value for what you're looking for, I would recommend you buy my X package, my dream visioning package, which is $697. One of my team members or I come over to your house, we go through this process, and then you get this little report that talks about the options that are available to you. And you know, there's that option, but if you just want me to come over and kind of look at some stuff, I can do that. But, you know, the value is going to be much less because I don't have the data. I can't just walk through your house and instantly see all the conditions and the things I need to know. It'd almost be irresponsible. It's sort of like a doctor recommending some medicine before the doctor actually has the time to make the proper diagnosis. So that's why we recommend our dream visiting package, which, again, friends and family price is $697. I don't know. It's one strategy.
Okay, let's see.
Or you could do like I do, which is like, we don't do business with friends and family. Talk to someone else. Go ahead, Lisa.
Keep it straightforward, you know, like
Yeah.
just the same thing. I had this conversation with a lot of pros is, you know, don't let your clients text you. Don't communicate via text message. You know, you set the boundaries. You call the shots. It's your business. You set the expectations prior to the project beginning. So there is no kind of gray area. It's black and white.
Yeah, powerful. Great point.
Let's see. Okay. Okay. I had inquiries where potential clients are trying to get a cheap deal because of the COVID situation. What is your advice on how to approach this?
Well, if that's what you want to do, like ultimately what I love about this is it gives you the power to make a choice. So this is where you have the opportunity to make a choice. You can try to talk to them about the value, but ultimately they came to you and they're looking for a cheap deal. You can say, look, is cheapness your ultimate criteria? You're looking for the cheapest option. And they can tell you yes or no. Yes, we are. No, we're not. You say, well, you know, and then you have the option to say, well, I'm not the cheapest option because I don't focus on the, you know, I focus on the value of the whole project. If I cheap out up front, it's going to end up most likely costing you more in the long run. I don't work like that. Or you could say, yeah, let's get to business. We'll try to keep the cost down and I'll try to be the cheapest option for you. But I mean, you have the choice. So it's up to you. I mean, I would just be very clear with them, ask them, explore that idea with them. It's an opportunity for a conversation. Say, look, you know, are you open to the fact that you may invest less money now in design services or whatever services you provide, but it may cost you double or triple down the line because of these factors. Are you okay with that? Explore that conversation with them, and you'll get a good read whether they're looking for the cheapest deal or not. And if they are, it's up to you. You can accept it or not, depending on your pipeline and where you draw the line. Great question.
Let's see, lots of questions coming in. When starting to work with a client who is not yet interested on the price, but more in the development of the design for the new space, at what time and how would you consider the most appropriate time to ask what their budget is? This is important to make sure we don't continue to develop the design of something that will be completely out of their budget.
I mean, I would figure out what their budget is before on that first phone call, like as early in the process. You're to me, you've gone too far without understanding the budget. Like if you've invested any time in working with them and you don't have an idea of the budget, this is where problems happen. I was talking to my brother-in-law. We had a barbecue just the other day. Shh, don't tell anyone. There's 10 people, I promise. No, we were getting together, and he was telling me about a new car that he purchased at a Toyota dealership, and he was saying, yeah, you know, the minute you walk in there and you sit down in that seat, they know your employment, they know how much you make, they know, you know, what you ate for breakfast yesterday, they've looked up all your social media profiles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So again, the question was, when should I find out a budget? Should be as early as possible. And there's different ways to do that. You could say, great, you know, are you looking for the Kia, you know, are you looking for the Lamborghini Aventador, or are you looking for the, you know, BMW 7 Series? You know, but you got to explore that question with them, figure out their budget early, like first thing.
I agree. It's one of those things that you can't skip over. Here's a great question. And again, we're trying to get to all of your questions. We'll ask maybe one or two more questions. As a startup, how do you focus on the lack of reviews to get business? And I have actually a good idea on this. We covered this and we've had weekly webinars, but this is for you to
Great,
answer.
I love you. You answer that, Risa. You're a pro on this. Why don't you take this one?
Yeah, and when you've had, basically what he's saying is when you've had the business from working as an architect or big corporate. So this is really interesting, and I saw a lot of, especially in the interior design scene, not to say that if you're a builder or an architect that you can't do this as well, but get anybody to review you on your Houzz profile, get your tradespeople to review you, get your clients. If you did, when you first started your business, take on a project for a family or friend that you did for the portfolio shots, get them to review you. If you do agree to take on one of those projects, make it be a trade agreement. Like, I will do XYZ, make it really clear, write it out, put together a loose contract, and put that in writing, and like, hey, if I do XYZ for you, you will write this review, you will post whatever. But I really recommend to other home professionals that, like, even on Houzz, you can ask anybody to review you. It doesn't have to be just clients, and getting those reviews up will help your SEO. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to help you be seen and doing good work. Even if you just want to put together some design presentations and you're ideating on your skills and your abilities, you can make those projects up, and you can take on projects if you are slow right now to help people out, and kind of put it in a bucket of your donations. And there's a really great nonprofit called Savvy Giving by Design. If you want to take on some projects there, it's some virtual design projects. There's all sorts of ideas and ways to get involved. And then, you know, that nonprofit, whoever you made that space for, and again, I'm not telling you to give your work away for free, but just filling in the gaps, ways to build out your portfolio. There's so many creative ideas. You can always shoot me an email. I'll drop my email in here as well. But I didn't mean to steal your thunder, Enoch. Just lots of creative ideas.
Oh, I have no thunder on that. Your thunder was much more powerful than mine was. I learned some cool tips there. Thank you, Lisa. Amazing.
Great. Yeah, and as I mentioned before, we just had wrapped up our virtual design market last week, and we had lots of innovative speakers. Every Wednesday we do a webinar. Enoch, so grateful for you to give us your time, and I know we're at 70 minutes now, so we'll wrap up. I will make sure to drop Enoch's email in here as well if you do have questions. And somebody had asked about working with you, happy to pass along that information as well. And one last question that I wanted your opinion on this, because I saw this asked a couple times, is the, not necessarily the lack of confidence, but just this new normal of like not being able to meet in person with your clients. And somebody said, I sell a service that is myself, my ideas, my charisma. how do I sell that without personally being able to connect with clients, in person?
Powerful, powerful question. Great question. I mean, great question. Excellent. And congratulations to you for having those soft skills to be able to make that impact on people. I mean, that is a real, real gift. What I would say is that, look, if you can't connect in person, we have to do the next best thing, which is video. So video is a medium like anything else. Apply those soft skills to video because, look, video is a powerful, powerful medium. I mean, just imagine the videos, the movies you've seen that have made you cry. I mean, one made me cry just last weekend. I can't remember what it was, but I was like literally in tears. I was like, just sniffling. That's so what I'd have you consider is that although it may not be as powerful as being able to really sit down with someone and breathe their same air, so to speak, but actually you can create a powerful impact through video. Now, what we're going to see in the future in terms of marketing, we're going to see a lot more powerful video marketing, meaning that enthusiasm, that power, that secret sauce that you have in person, you can translate that through video, and that is through a powerful message. It's through understanding what your clients truly want, because it all comes down to communication, and that's what it comes down to, is one human being to another. So whether it's video communication, the body language is going to be important. You can get 90, 85% of that through a video conversation. So I would say double down on that and begin to master the expertise of video.
Yep.
Yeah,
Video
Jeff
is
here, he says, I produce videos for designers full time and it does work. Jeff and I have actually worked together, and yes, he makes some amazing videos. So the reason why I mention that is because it is a new and burgeoning field, and it's a powerful way to do. So not just the meetings, but actually creating some short form content. There's a lot of future in that.
Yep. And we did actually, Enoch and I were talking about this earlier. We did a presentation with a public speaking coach, and she had to shift her whole presentation to be a virtual presentation. So I dropped the link in there. If you want to catch that session, it's in there. How to inspire charisma and confidence through public speaking. That's literally the title of it. So, but I think it's, getting comfortable with yourself and on camera and practicing and just diving right in. But video is pretty powerful. Well, Enoch, I wanted to thank you so much for your time. I know we didn't get to everybody's questions, but if you do have any other questions, I dropped my email, Enoch's email in here. This will also be recorded, so if you missed any parts, you will be able to watch the recording. And thank you everyone for being here with us today. Enoch, thank you so much for your time, and wishing everybody, I feel like May is a new month, for me at least. New, like, things are happening and adjusting, and it's obviously a difficult time for everybody, but it's a great time to work on your systems, your processes, really understand the mind and the thought process that goes behind, and how to communicate with your potential clients and build that trust. So thank you so much, Enoch, for your time, and everyone for being here, and we'll see you all next week.
That's right. Thank you, Risa. It's been a pleasure being here. For people that want to connect with me, just look up Business of Architecture on the web. I'm very easy to find.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.